Why did God flood the entire earth? Was it because he just felt like it? Or was there a deeper reason? Well, today, we're gonna find out in this episode of the Bible in a minute. Welcome back, gang, to another episode, where we bring you the most important stories from both the Old and New Testament, so you can feel smarter about what's in the Bible without having to spend 40 hours straight reading it. Today, we are, of course, looking at the story of Noah's Ark and the great flood found in Genesis chapters 6 through 9. But before we dive into that, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. Also, make sure to click the bell icon so you never miss an episode. And while you're at it, leave us a comment below letting us know what your favorite Bible story is. We love reading them. Alright, gang, let's dive into the story. So by the time we get to Genesis chapter 6, things aren't going too well. Humanity has strayed pretty far from God, who says that they have grieved him constantly with their wickedness, violence, and sin. So in order to fix it, God decides to start over. Now, the first thing we need to understand about this story is that people were evil back then, not just like they are now. Back then, evil was running rampant, and the problem wasn't that everyone had committed a few minor sins. No. The problem was that people's hearts had become so wicked that they had completely abandoned God. They had turned away from everything that was good and pure, and instead they had embraced darkness, sin, and corruption. Their imaginations were filthy and violent, and their hands were covered in blood. In other words, when God looked down at humanity, he didn't see anything worth saving. It's almost as if, when God created man, he had put a lit candle on a table. Then he stepped away for a moment, only to return and find that the entire table was engulfed in flames. That's how bad things had gotten. So desperate times called for desperate measures. God needed to shake things up, to do something radical, to reset everything. But first, he wanted to give humanity one last chance. Which brings us to Noah. God saw Noah as a beacon of light in the darkness. He was a righteous man who walked closely with God, whose heart was pure and whose life was blameless. And as such, God decided to reveal his plan to him. God told Noah that he would destroy all living things, both human and animal, with a great flood, but that he would preserve them all on the huge boat called an ark that Noah was to construct. God gave Noah detailed instructions on how to build it, including its dimensions and the materials to be used. He told him to make it 3 stories high with rooms for humans and animals, and he instructed him to coat it with a thick layer of pitch for waterproofing. But perhaps the most crucial part of these instructions was that the ark was to serve as a vessel of hope, a symbol of God's faithfulness in the midst of judgment. It was to remind those who entered it that even in the darkest of times, God still had plans and purposes that would eventually come to pass. Now, some people are quick to criticize Noah for being a mere vessel of God's will. They point to passages like 1 Peter 3:20, which states that Noah, being warned by God of what would happen, constructed an ark for the salvation of his household, in which only 8 persons were saved through water. But to truly understand Noah's role in this narrative, we must look beyond his obedience to God's instructions and recognize him as a key player in the preservation of life on earth. Yes, he acted according to divine guidance, but he also made active choices that ensured the survival of countless species. Noah didn't simply follow blueprints. He took initiative, resourcefulness, and courage. He assembled a massive workforce, sourced vast quantities of timber and animals, and then guided them all into the ark. Through his leadership and decision-making, Noah turned a divine command into a tangible reality, saving not just his family, but countless forms of life from extinction. This becomes clearer when we remember that Noah was not just building a boat, he was constructing a zoo. Imagine the complexity of managing such an enormous menagerie. ensuring their well-being and orchestrating their orderly entry into the ark. Noah's role went beyond passive obedience. He became a key factor in averting a total extinction event, showcasing remarkable initiative, resourcefulness, and courage. This perspective challenges the notion of Noah as merely a passive instrument of divine will. Instead, it highlights him as an active agent in the preservation of life on earth. Through his leadership and decision-making skills, Noah played a pivotal role in saving not just his family, but countless species from extinction. His actions demonstrate that he wasn't merely a passive vessel of God's will, but a proactive participant in the drama of creation and judgment. But enough about Noah for a moment. Let's shift our focus to the world outside the ark. As the rain began to fall, the world outside the ark was plunged into chaos. The skies wept, unleashing a torrent of water that seemed determined to scour the earth clean. Day by day, the deluge continued, each drop hammering the ground with the finality of a judge's gavel. Mountains were humbled, valleys were drowned, and every dry land vanished beneath a watery grave. Animals who hadn't found refuge on the ark perished, their cries echoing the world's sorrow. But as the waters rose, a peculiar calm descended around the ark. For here, sheltered from the raging tempest, Noah, his family, and the representatives of every living creature waited patiently for the storm to pass. Now, the story of the flood is much more than just a tale of divine retribution. It is a profound reflection on the consequences of unchecked human behavior and the awesome power of nature when left uncontrolled. Humans had corrupted the world, tainting every facet of existence with their wickedness. The earth itself was weary of bearing their sinful burden. In the face of this global crisis, God chose to act decisively, sending a flood that would wash away all traces of humanity's corruption. The story reminds us that the natural world is not a playground for human whims. It's a delicate balance that can easily be tipped towards destruction. The flood serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of our existence and the profound responsibility we bear towards the world around us. It's a cautionary tale that echoes through the ages, urging us to live in harmony with the planet and with each other. If we forget this lesson, we risk repeating the mistakes of the past, ultimately inviting another deluge to wash away the corruption of our time. In the end, after 40 days and 40 nights of continuous rain, the floodwaters finally began to recede. As the water levels dropped, a new landscape emerged. Mountains once again poked through the retreating waters, revealing a world cleansed but empty. The flood had done its work, washing away the old and leaving the earth raw and vulnerable. Yet amidst this watery wasteland, a glimmer of hope appeared. The ark, battered but intact, came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. And with it, the story of humanity took a decisive turn. The door of the ark opened, releasing a dove into the world. At first, the bird flew back, returning empty-handed, but on its second journey, it brought back an olive leaf, a universal symbol of peace and new beginnings. With this, Noah understood that the world had been renewed, offering a fresh start for life to flourish once more. But he wasn't done yet. With a third mission, a raven was sent forth, and this time it did not return. The raven symbolized the departed, those who had not found salvation in the ark. Its absence signified the finality of the flood, marking a clear distinction between the old and the new. So why did God send this great flood? What was the purpose of destroying everything? Well, it was simple, really. God wanted to cleanse the world from all of its corruption, to remove everything that had become tainted by human sin. He wanted to start fresh with a new creation. But it wasn't just about punishment, it was also about mercy. God was merciful to Noah and his family and all of the animals that were saved. He showed them that he was just and holy. Yes, but that he was also kind and compassionate. He didn't want to destroy the world because he enjoyed it, but because he loved it. And when all was said and done, God looked down at the world and saw that it was good. All right, gang, that's the story of Noah's Ark and the Great Flood, but what should we take away from it? Well, first, we should remember that God is just and holy, and he hates sin and unrighteousness. He will judge those who reject him and his word. Second, we should remember that God is merciful and compassionate, and he loves all people. He wants to save them from their sin and help them live godly lives. Finally, we should remember that God is in control of all things. He can and will judge the world, but he will also bring it back to life again. He is the God of second chances, and he wants us to follow him no matter what we've done in the past. Well, that's it for me today, gang. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Bible, and if you did, please subscribe. Also, leave us a comment below, letting us know what you thought of the episode. We love hearing from you guys, and if you liked it, please share it with a friend. Until next time, remember, Jesus loves you.